Picture this. You've done everything right. You read the books. You set up the automatic transfer. You stopped buying the dumb stuff. Every single month, like clockwork, money leaves your checking account and disappears into a brokerage you barely look at anymore. Because honestly, looking at it just makes you feel stupid. You're not stupid. You're early. Those are two completely different things, and nobody explains the difference until it's almost too late. Here's what they tell you. Invest consistently, be patient, compound interest is powerful. Here's what they don't tell you. For the first 8 years, your portfolio is going to feel like a broken appliance. You'll put money in, it'll grow a little, the market will sneeze, and half that growth disappears. You'll contribute again, grow a little, pull back, and you'll sit there month after month doing the math in your head, thinking, at this rate, I'll be 60 before this matters. That feeling, that specific frustration, it has a name. I call it the dead zone. And understanding the dead zone, really understanding it, is the difference between building actual wealth and spending your 30s and 40s hemorrhaging money into lifestyle upgrades while convincing yourself you'll start investing seriously next year. The dead zone is roughly the first 8 years of consistent investing, not because anything is broken, not because you're doing it wrong, but because of a brutal, unavoidable mathematical reality. In the early years, your contributions are bigger than your returns. You are outrunning your own compounding. Every dollar you put in dwarfs the interest it earns, which makes the whole thing feel pointless, like shoveling snow while it's still snowing. Let me give you the actual numbers because vague reassurance is useless. Say you start at 25, you invest $700 a month, $8,400 a year. Reasonable, achievable. You're getting an average 10% annual return, which is roughly in line with long-term historical stock market performance. You start from zero. End of year one, you've put in $8,400. Your portfolio is worth maybe $8,800. The market handed you $400 in gains. $400. You could have earned more selling stuff on Facebook Marketplace on a slow weekend. The gap between the hype and the reality feels almost insulting. Year 3, you've contributed $25,200 total. Your portfolio sits around $29,000. Your gains are roughly $3,800. That's more noticeable, but you're still doing the heavy lifting. Your contributions are doing about 7 times the work your returns are doing. Year 5, $42,000 contributed, portfolio around $54,000, gains of $12,000, getting better. But you're still carrying the weight. Your money isn't pulling its share yet. You're the one doing all the work, while your portfolio sits in the corner doing the bare minimum. Year 8, $67,200 contributed. Portfolio approximately $96,000. Gains have grown to about $29,000. And here's where something starts to shift. Your annual return this year alone, at 10% on $96,000, is nearly $9,600. Your annual contribution is $8,400. For the first time, your money is working almost as hard as you are. Almost. But here's the thing about year 8. You've been doing this for 8 years, nearly a decade, and you've got $96,000 to show for it. Meanwhile, your colleague just inherited $60,000 and bought a Porsche. Your friend invested in herself by launching a side hustle that made $11,000 last year, and she acts like she cracked the code. Your cousin flipped a house. Everyone around you seems to be generating visible, tangible, exciting results from their financial moves. And you've got a brokerage account that went up $9,600 this year. This is the psychological trap of the dead zone. It doesn't feel wrong, it feels boring. And boring is almost harder to survive than wrong, because wrong you can fight. Boring just slowly erodes your conviction until one day you stop the automatic transfer and tell yourself you'll restart it later. Later never comes. The reason compounding works the way it does comes down to a simple structural fact. Exponential growth is backloaded. The curve starts almost flat and stays that way for a long time. Then it bends sharply. And if you're not still in the game when it bends, you miss everything you were actually saving for. The math isn't hiding this from you. It's just that humans are notoriously bad at visualizing exponential curves. We think linearly. We see 3 years of modest growth and project that same modest growth forward. Our brains say if it grew this slowly for 3 years, it'll grow this slowly for 30. And that projection is completely catastrophically wrong. Year 10, around $142,000. Your return that year alone, $14,200. Almost double your annual contribution. The tide has turned. Your money is doing more than you are. Year 12, around $199,000. Annual return approaching $20,000. You're contributing $8,400. Your portfolio is now generating more than twice what you put in each year. You've crossed into different territory entirely. Year 15, roughly $296,000. Annual return of nearly $30,000 on a portfolio that's compounding on itself with no additional effort from you. You could stop contributing entirely and still watch your account grow by more per year than most people save. 8 years of grinding, then suddenly it starts to feel like cheating. That's the dead zone. That's what you're in right now. That's what you need to survive. Let me show you 2 people who started in the same place and ended up in completely different lives, not because one was smarter, not because one earned more, because one understood the dead zone and the other didn't. Diane is 27. She's a graphic designer making $62,000 a year. She sets up a $600 monthly transfer into a low-cost index fund. She doesn't think about it too much. She reads one personal finance book, decides the advice is sound, and mostly ignores the account after that. She does not optimize. She does not day trade. She does not switch strategies every time a finance influencer goes viral. She just keeps going, month after month, year after year, through a market crash at year 3 and a nasty 2-year dip at year 6. She keeps going. At 35, 8 years in, her portfolio is worth roughly $83,000 on $57,600 in contributions. She's underwhelmed, but not rattled. At 39, 12 years, she's at $162,000. Her annual returns that year are $16,000. Her annual contributions are $7,200. She's finally in the acceleration phase, and she can feel it. At 42, 15 years, she's sitting at $236,000. The last 3 years added $74,000 to her portfolio, more than the first 8 years combined. By 50, assuming she stays consistent and markets behave historically, she's looking at somewhere around $620,000. Now meet Jordan. Same age as Diane, different job, project manager, making slightly more, around $68,000. Jordan also starts investing at 27 with the same $600 a month. But Jordan is smart, dangerously smart. The kind of smart that is actually a liability when it comes to building long-term wealth. Jordan watches his portfolio closely. He reads the financial news. He tracks his return percentage obsessively. By year 4, he's crunched the numbers and concluded that his advisor the one managing a small portion of his funds, is underperforming the benchmark. He's right. He fires the advisor and moves everything. Then the market drops, and he moves again. Then a new platform with lower fees launches, and he migrates. Then he reads about real estate and pauses contributions for 18 months while he researches. Then crypto happens. Then he repositions. Jordan never stops caring about money. He cares enormously. He just keeps starting over. By 42, Jordan has roughly $71,000 invested, scattered across 3 accounts, 2 of which he barely remembers the login for. He's made smart individual decisions repeatedly. He just never stayed in one place long enough for those decisions to compound. The gap between Diane and Jordan at 50 is not $600 a month times 15 years. It's not a contribution math problem. The gap is compounding that was interrupted versus compounding that wasn't. Diane has $620,000. Jordan might have $180,000, mostly from the last few years when he finally stayed put. $200,000 versus $600,000. Same income bracket, same starting point, same time period. The behavioral trap that destroys Jordan and most people is what I call intelligent impatience. It's not laziness. It's not ignorance. It's knowing just enough to convince yourself that optimization is more valuable than consistency. Jordan always had a reason to move. Every reason was reasonable. Every individual decision made sense. But the cumulative effect of making sensible decisions that reset the clock is financial devastation disguised as diligence. The dead zone is most dangerous for smart people, genuinely, because smart people can't sit still in the face of disappointing results without trying to fix something. And in investing during the dead zone, there's nothing to fix. The math is working. You just can't see it yet. The fix is to do nothing. And doing nothing deliberately, persistently, with full awareness of what you're choosing is almost impossibly hard if you're the type of person who's used to solving problems. So what do you actually do concretely today? Step 1, find your dead zone position. Go look at your investment account right now. Calculate your total contributions to date versus your total current balance. If contributions are larger than your earnings, you're in the zone. Write the number down, know where you are, because you can't navigate a map if you don't know your starting point. Step 2, calculate your crossover date. At your current contribution rate and assuming roughly 8 to 10% annual growth, estimate when your annual return will match your annual contribution. That's your crossover. That's the moment your money starts carrying its own weight. It's probably closer than you think, and seeing an actual date makes the dead zone feel survivable instead of infinite. Now, a quick dose of reality. When you calculate this, remember that we're talking about nominal numbers. Inflation is the silent partner that eats some of your purchasing power over a decade. So, when you find your crossover date, aim to exceed your contribution by a bit more to account for the rising cost of living. We aren't just chasing a big number on a screen, we're chasing the freedom that number buys. Step 3, lock yourself out. Set your investments to auto transfer on payday before you can spend it, and delete the app from your phone if you're a compulsive checker. I'm serious. Performance anxiety causes more wealth destruction than bad stock picks. You don't need real-time data on a long-term investment. That's like weighing yourself after every meal and making dietary decisions based on water retention. Step 4. Make your only job during the dead zone be the contribution, not the return, not the allocation, not the platform. Pick a simple diversified fund, a total market index, an S&P 500 fund, whatever, and make your only obsession be increasing the monthly contribution by any amount every year. $10 more per month. 20. The contribution is the lever during the dead zone. The returns will take care of themselves once the base is big enough. Now here's where this gets bigger than your brokerage account. The dead zone isn't just a financial phenomenon. Every skill worth having has one. Your first 8 years of trying to build something, a business, a writing practice, a reputation in a field, a physical capability, will feel exactly like your investment portfolio in year 4. The inputs are high, the outputs are embarrassingly low. The people who aren't doing it look like they're winning, and you're sitting there grinding away, wondering if you misread the situation. The people who quit a skill at year 2 or 3 never find out what they were capable of at year 7. They carry around a vague sense of, I tried that, didn't work for me, when what actually happened is they stopped before the curve bent. Compounding is not a financial concept. It's a description of how growth actually works in systems that build on themselves. Skills compound, trust compounds, reputation compounds, physical fitness to a point compounds. The dead zone shows up in all of them. And the people who understand that the boring early years are structurally necessary, not a sign that something is wrong, are the ones who eventually look like they got lucky. They didn't get lucky. They just knew what they were in before they were in it. You now know what you're in. The question is whether you're going to do anything differently tomorrow morning because of it, or whether you'll close this video, feel briefly inspired, and then let the automatic transfer lapse next month because you want to repaint the kitchen. Your future self already knows the answer. The only question is whether your present self is going to make them proud or make them furious.